Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha, and it's time for part 5 of the Monday Q&A. I know we're ready to get this done. Gotta get that pec bounce going. Alright, first question. Would you get quick gains after using a small amount of gear if they started using later on in life when they had gone down the natty path for several years and had lost a lot of muscle for a natty? Well, you want to use me as an example? I used gear for years. You guys have seen my photos. I was big as fuck. And unless you were Ronnie Coleman size, you have no room to say that I wasn't. Because I was bigger than any motherfucker I see on YouTube right now other than maybe Cali Muscle. Maybe. So, that's where I was. I came off of gear, lost about 40 pounds of muscle. I could still bench 405. I could still squat 550. I was still 215 lean. I was going to say 19-inch arms, but my left bicep had been ruptured, so it was smaller. But my right one was 19 inches still. And I hadn't been on drugs for 3 years. That's 3 years after coming off. I had had a slow, gradual decline of losing gains over the years. I got sick and lost everything. I've been training again over 2 years. I've been blasting and cruising for over a year. I have not gotten back to where I was when I got sick. Where I had regressed to after 3 years of no gear, I still have not been able to get back to that because that is years and years of muscle growth. It took me something like 3 years of training plus 3 more years of gear use to get to the point that I had regressed to. So that I regressed back to the point I was at about 3 years of drug use is where I had regressed to with no drugs for 3 years. Okay, that's where I pushed back to. So realistically, no, it's going to take you, if I were to use myself as an example, I would predict that it would take me 3 years of anabolic use to gain the amount of muscle and strength that I did the first time on 3 years of gear. And as far as the example I can see, it doesn't seem to work differently than that. You don't regain the muscle that you lost from gear by using less gear or by shorter amounts of gear. So whatever you gained from the gear before you went off, you're going to have to spend just as much time on the gear and on the same amounts to regain what you lost. And that's using me as an example, and that is using other people I've seen as an example. That's just reality. You're not going to get the type of muscle memory that you think that you're going to get from it. So if you do 3 cycles, you're going to have to do those same 3 cycles again to regain what you gained on those 3 cycles after you lost it. Plain and simple. Alright, next question. Hey Jason, big question here. I'm currently in the hospital and was just diagnosed with MS. Dude, that sucks. I feel for you. One of my mother's best friends had MS really, really bad, and she was actually blind and bedridden at one point. Terrible disease. It affects my walking and balance. Been there with my Meniere's. I've spent most of the weekend reading up on it, as well as the pros and cons of weight training while dealing with this illness. Can you provide any insight on the relationship between the two? Alright, I'm going to tell you as somebody who previously suffered from a medical condition. When my doctors told me to quit lifting, me stopping lifting was the worst thing I could have done. I absolutely should have kept lifting. Now, I'm not telling you to try to lift hard because you're going to be very, very limited by this medical condition. But if you can get in and just do a little bit, just a little bit, do anything to keep yourself functioning, to keep those neural pathways stimulated. Now, I know it's hard to do that, and it may be painful because MS, you're missing those myelin sheaths on the nerves. You're going to get nerve pain. The training itself may cause you nerve pain because you're stimulating those neurons. But when you've got a bad condition like this, in my personal experience with my own body and watching other people, is that when you quit being active, you will degenerate so fast. So my advice is talk to your doctor about it. Obviously speak with your doctor about this. Tell him what I said there and ask what he thinks. Obviously I don't want you to do this without talking to an MD first. But I'm going to recommend that you get your doctor on board with this, talk with them, and try to be able to do some sort of lifting, even if it's nothing but the empty bar. You've got to be able to do something because otherwise your body, you just deteriorate so fast when you become sedentary, when you're really sick with a serious major issue. All right, next question. Is it possible to accumulate intramuscular fat? Should we care about that shit? Well, you shouldn't care about it so much, but yeah, you can gain it, and it is responsible for a lot of your muscle size. There's a genetic component with how much you gain, and drum roll, everyone talks about BBC genetic. Black men store more fat inside the muscles of their arms than other races, at least African American men do, according to studies. That is one of the reasons a lot of black guys have slightly better arm development when you look, because they store more fat inside the muscle. It's that marbling in there, or it's actually triglyceride stores in the muscle cells right there next to the contractile elements, because your muscles can use that as fuel. And so if they've got immediate fats or triglycerides right there handy available to use as fuel, they can use that for fuel. So it is something beneficial. How much of it you're going to have, there can be genetic components to it, and it will contribute to overall muscle size, but I wouldn't worry about specifically training for it. It's just one of the byproducts of training in and of itself. Alright guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it has been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time. But let me give you guys a bicep shot before I go. Oh.